Halloween season is here. So like last year, the Spooktober tradition continues. 31 Halloween-related movies in 31 days. No repeats from last year, and the overall quality of a movie will affect how much I spoil it. If there are any reviews you want to skip, check the timestamp at the bottom to jump around. So, let's begin. Friday the 13th, Part 1. The movie starts off with two camp counselors sneaking off to make a little whoopee. But before the clothes come off, they get interrupted by a mysterious figure, and it jump cuts to the guy getting a sliced open gut and a freeze frame on the girl screaming.
No good. Wow.
This is actually a perfect intro to show the audience the quality of the movie they are about to watch. So I'm going to spoil the hell out of this one cause it sucks. A new girl comes into town and her name is Annie, and she is the new camp cook at Camp Crystal Lake. She gets a ride halfway to the camp from one of the locals, and wait, did that trucker help her into his car by pushing up on her butt cheeks?
Boost my bottom! Booster!
Annie gets a ride from someone else the other half of the way, but when things seem a little fishy, she bails out of the car. For a minute it seems like she is gonna get away, but no, she gets her neck sliced. Wait, what? She's already dead? She was like the first new character we meet and she's the first to go? That's a nice little surprise. We are then introduced to more characters and, oh hey, it's Kevin Bacon.
Yeah, my wife says if I watch any more Kevin Bacon, I might actually turn into Kevin Bacon.
Not much happens for a while, but the town crazy keeps showing up warning people that bad things are coming, so it doesn't seem like he is the killer, but we are already 30 minutes into this movie and there are zero clues to who our killer is or what their motives are. There are 5 people at the camp and the head counselor left for the day. So there's a lot of ground with plenty of opportunity to fool around, so Kevin Bacon and his girl get lucky in a cabin on the bottom bunk. Little did they know the killer got lucky with the funny guy of the group on the top bunk. I wonder how long he's been there, cause you know, he is eventually gonna. And then Kevin Bacon gets the axe, or better, the arrow.
What a joker.
It's kind of a cool kill, but the more you think about it, the more it doesn't make sense. Because it is too risky to kill someone in bed while you are under the bed. There are a lot of chances to miss, especially if you use an arrow. This is a bad way to kill someone in bed. This is a better way to kill someone in bed. Also, if you look close enough, you'll realize how bad the practical effects are in this scene. Kevin Bacon's girlfriend then gets killed in the shower cabin. She gives a cheesy scream and then the camera jumps to an axe on her face, which looks good, but it's a lame, cheap scene jump. Meanwhile, the remaining 3 are playing strip Monopoly and, I mean, it's a slasher movie, so what else are you gonna do? The game gets interrupted and one of the girls leaves, and since she is by herself, obviously she gets killed off, and we don't even get to see it.
Whippy!
I feel like this movie is killing off characters too quickly. I really don't know anything about these people before they die. I only felt something for Nancy, who got killed first because she was really friendly and it really seemed like she was gonna last longer. Everyone else has like one character trait, if we're lucky. It would have been a scary movie if all of this happened while the kids were at the camp, like in Fear Street Part 2.
Tommy?
It would have added an extra level of threat to the story. Anyways, back to the movie. So the head counselor heads back just to get mysteriously killed. And I'll admit, the jump scare did get me. So Bill, I'm calling him by his name because he doesn't really do anything. Bill goes and fixes the generator, and since he is by himself, it is safe to assume that he also gets killed. Okay, so we are an hour and 10 minutes into this movie, and we haven't heard a thing about Jason. Alice, our final girl, goes looking for Bill and finds his body stuck in a swinging door by 3 arrows, and it looks terrible. Alice gets trolled by the killer for a bit and then books it only for Pamela Voorhees to come to the rescue.
Who?
So Pamela Voorhees finally tells the story of Jason and him drowning while the counselors were getting busy. So when she heard they were opening up the camp again, 22 years after her son's death, and this is just a guess. We know the intro counselor's deaths happened in 1958, so I'm guessing this is all happening in present time, which would be 1980. So Mrs. Voorhees tries to kill Alice, and she's terrible at it. They fight and Alice gets the upper hand, then books it to another spot 3 times before the final 4th time where Alice cuts Mrs. Voorhees' head off with a machete. Alice then goes for a nice little boat ride in the lake until dawn. The cops show up and you think it's gonna be a happy ending, but then a zombie kid jumps out of the water and pulls her in. This is undoubtedly the best part of the whole movie, and rightfully so. Alice then wakes up in the hospital, and who the hell knows why? Seriously, they had the perfect ending, then they undermine it by saying it was a dream, maybe? Alice thinks Jason is still there because the cops never found him when they pulled her out of the lake, and the movie ends. What was the point of her waking up in the hospital to say those lines? If you wanted to tease a possible sequel, just end the movie after she gets pulled into the lake. The beginning of your next movie can decide if she survived or not, or if it was a dream or not. Cause zombie boy Jason makes no sense. Shouldn't he have aged? It's been at minimum several years since his quote-unquote death, and in all the other movies we know he's fully grown. This movie is terrible, on all accounts. The acting or the dialogue dips halfway through the movie. Mrs. Voorhees kills 8 people and we only see half of them happen. They also went way too far with the mystery killer aspect. When they introduced Mrs. Voorhees, I felt nothing. When she told the story of Jason's death, I felt nothing. We are in the last 15 minutes of the movie and I'm supposed to care about these reveals? There was nothing that led to these conclusions, not one clue to tell us who the killer was or what their motives were. The killer could have been Mayor McCheese and I would have been just as surprised. And don't give me that cop-out bullshit excuse of it came out in the 80s. Yeah, and Nightmare on Elm Street and Black Christmas came out around the same time, and these movies are actually good and hold up well. In conclusion, Friday the 13th Part 1 is a terrible movie. I don't know why there were more sequels, but there are. And I do not recommend watching the original. Friday the 13th, Part 2. I gotta say, this movie also sucks. It is better than the first one, but this one is still bad. So I'm gonna spoil this one a lot as well. The movie starts off with a 5-minute rehash of the last movie. Great, we get to revisit ship parts from a bad movie for the 2nd time.
Whippy!
So back to the present time, Alice wakes up from the dream of the rehash of the last movie. They go with this stalker camera follow style, but the problem is, the camera isn't the killer, so it focuses the attention on the wrong parts. Whatever. So Alice walks around her empty house and finds a severed head in the fridge, then gets stabbed in the temple.
What was the point of all that?
Whose head was in that fridge? Why are we doing the same fake out killer from the first? Who is this? Jason? He was a zombie kid in the previous movie, and there has been no established time jump. How did he track her down? Did he start at the hospital? Am I nitpicking? Maybe. This is such a shitty start to this movie. It really is. So 2 new teens get into town and oh look, the crazy guy from the first movie made it to this one.
We don't care.
So we meet the counselors and there's like 15 of them, and the head guy Mark tells the story of Jason, which retcons everything from the previous movie. Oh, and Mark is dating our new final girl and her name is Jenny. Yeah, I don't care about your story, buddy. You can't just state that Jason should be full grown by now when the last movie we saw him as a child. And get this, he states that Alice, the final girl from the last movie, went missing 2 months ago.
What? Well, come on!
We saw a full-grown man kill her at the beginning. Does that mean Jason was in the first movie and that his mom only came in at the end? Did they retcon the zombie kid thing? This writing is atrocious. Anyways, the night goes on and our town crazy is snooping around and gets choked out by some barbed wire and dies without a sound. And the next morning, the local cop snoops around and gets the nail remover part of a hammer to the back of his head, and he lets out an ah and dies. I feel like those should have been flipped. Like, the choked out guy gets a little ah, but the guy with the sharp part of a hammer to the back of the skull just goes out without a peep, but whatever. It's the last night before the campers arrive, so most of the counselors head to the local bar and a few stragglers stay behind. The first one to die is the group pervert, who gets strung up and gets his throat slit, which is alright. But the girl who showed her boobs for no reason like moments earlier gets killed off screen, which is terrible for a slasher movie at least. The next one to die is the wheelchair guy who takes a machete to the face, but at the wrong angle for someone sneaking up behind you swinging at a downward angle. And then the script pulls a flight of stairs out of its ass on the beach just so we can see him dramatically roll down them, even though he would have fallen out of his chair immediately. Seriously, where did this flight of stairs come from? The next kill is a 2-for-1 because Jason spears a couple while they are laying on top of each other in bed. If it seems like I'm blowing through the plot just to talk about the kills, you'd be absolutely right. The reason being is that there isn't really much of a plot to talk about. Mark and Ginny return from the bar, but right before they get back, Jason kills the last of the counselors still at the camp, whose only character trait is that she wanted to sleep with the wheelchair guy. Mark and Ginny realize something is up and Mark gets jumped by Jason, who then goes after Ginny. She eventually gets a small window where she can hide under a bed. Classic move. Jason checks the room and is about to leave, but a rat crawls near Ginny, which makes her wet herself, and Jason's like, "I smell pee-pee." Seriously? There's a serial killer in the same room as you, and a rat makes you piss yourself? Get your priorities together, you dumb bitch. How she escapes this situation is beyond lucky and ridiculous, but she makes her way to Jason's little sanctuary where he keeps all of his belongings, some dead bodies, oh, and his mom's severed head. So Ginny is quick on her feet and she's like, "I'ma trick him." So Ginny puts on his mom's sweater from the first movie and that's it. Jason comes charging into the room and Ginny starts talking to him like she is his mother, and it works!
What? Oh, come on!
How is this working? Why is this working? Was that his mom's only sweater or something? You know what would make more sense? Since her severed head is on a shrine, take that and threaten to destroy it, or throw it as far as you can to give yourself some distance from Jason. He obviously cares about it. Whatever. So Mark comes in from the rescue, and I don't really know how he's alive. Jason isn't the type to choke someone out or just to simply knock someone out. He's more of the type to smash your head into a wall until the bones break. But his distraction opens up a window for Ginny to stick a machete through Jason's collarbone, which seems to kill him. So Mark and Ginny go back to the main cabin and Jason jumps through the window for one final jump scare and grabs Ginny, and then the screen fades to black. The next morning we see Ginny being taken into an ambulance and the movie ends. No explanation how she survived, no mention if Mark survived or where Jason is or why he let her live. What a tease, which is how I describe this whole movie. It shows us like 15 counselors, so you'd think the kill count would be really high, but no, we only see half of them die. It baffles me that this movie did so well. The first 2 movies in this franchise are terrible, and yet they kept pumping them out. I See You. This is a very interesting movie, and most of the plot revolves around a missing boy and the lead detective on the case. Also, his family life is stirring up a lot of drama on top of it all. The movie is essentially cut into 2 parts. The first part focuses on the family. The relationship with the mom, dad, and son are in the toilet, most of it being the mom's fault. I know Helen Hunt used to be quite the looker back in the day, but in this movie, yeah, I don't really know what happened, and this is going to come across as super mean, but when you see these comparisons, you can't unsee them. I'm not going to spoil anything else about the movie and what happens, but the second half almost comes out of nowhere, but it weaves itself into the first half incredibly well. This is my second time seeing this movie, and I may have liked it more on the second run, but I think this is a good thriller mystery drama. I do recommend it. The Vigil. This movie is about a young man who has fallen away from his Jewish faith, but is asked to be the shomer for a recently deceased man. So, the job of a shomer is to watch over a recently deceased body overnight until dawn, and this time window is called the Vigil. But things aren't as they seem, and our main character is not prepared for what's coming.
We're in for one wild night.
I thought this movie overall was okay, so I will do some minor spoilers for it. So basically, during the life of the recently deceased man, he was plagued by a demon known as a mazik, or mazikin. This demon feeds off of people's trauma, forces them to relive them, plays mind games with them, until they go crazy and die. Most of the scares in this movie are jump scares. Half of them hit, half of them miss, and when they miss, it is usually because of the bad effects or just predictable moments. The Mazik targets our main character, who must defeat it before the sunrise, or he will live with the demon for the rest of his life. It's not a terrible movie, but it's also a movie I wouldn't recommend unless someone was really interested in a Jewish mythology movie with a small cast, few locations, and lots of jump scares. Scream. We end this first section of movies with a classic. The first Scream movie is pretty infamous with the beginning and its ending. Even though this was my first time watching this movie, I knew basically what was going to happen in the intro and in the end. I really wish I hadn't known what was going to happen. I wish I could have seen this movie 100% fresh, but be that as it may, I was still able to feel tension and dread in its more intense moments and laugh at its more comical ones. Remember, the whole point of this movie is that it's a play on horror movies, so things are supposed to be obvious and over the top. And since the whole point of the movie is supposed to be satire on classic horror movies, that's pretty much what the plot is. It's a classic slasher movie. Even though it does like pretty much all of the same things and everything is supposed to be obvious, it still has a lot of surprises, even though you're supposed to see all of them coming. So, classic girl gets chased around by a psycho killer. And that's pretty much the plot. Or that's at least how much I want to explain, because I really do want people to watch this movie, especially if you haven't seen it. I won't spoil anything, but the ending was wrapped up without giving enough tension to one of its main characters who had a much bigger role than the ending gave them credit for. Overall, it's a great movie. I definitely recommend it for someone who likes horror comedies. Thanks for watching, and stay spooky until the next 5.